It was a tricky start for Mercedes in Bahrain, as the team and drivers were struggling to get grips with the 2023 W14 Challenger. Porpoising might be gone, but the W14 is struggling with balance, stability, and tire degradation problems. The problem is definitely in the sidepod design. That's why Hamilton had some interesting things to say about the team not listening to him last year, and Mercedes have thrown themselves into a big pile of mess again. We will also go through why the sidepods is the key for Mercedes to gain a huge chunk of performance. First, let's take a look at how Mercedes ended up at the present situation. 12 months ago, Mercedes revealed their 2022 car in Barcelona testing. It was in the mix with the other cars on the grid. Certainly, it had sidepods. But at Bahrain for the second test, Mercedes showed up with an incredible design that became known as the zero pod or the narrow side pods, whatever you like to call it as. The side pods of the W13 were so slim, even the side impact structure was a separate element. The narrow side pods were really unique, and no other car had anything like it. Many teams considered that design as a technical masterpiece. Considering the fact everyone was surprised on the complex packaging the team had made to fit all of that cooling into the side pods. Mercedes, as we know, are the kings for innovations. But was it fast on track? Well, Mercedes seemed to think it would after witnessing its potential in the wind tunnel. But the W13 was plagued with issues, most notably porpoising. By the end of 2022, the team was able to get on top of most issues within the W13, and it did even turn out to be a race winner eventually at Brazil. With that positivity, the team headed into the winter break, designing and developing the W14. That brings us to 2023 and the W14. Everyone was interested to see what Mercedes would do over the winter to close the gap to Ferrari and Red Bull. First thing they did was enhance the zero pods, as the engineers at Mercedes suggested that it's not just the side pods. The concept of the car includes things that you can't see. The floor being one of the most pivotal parts of the car to generate downforce, and the suspension as well is so important to keep that low ride height. When revealing the W14 to the world, Mercedes were confident they had got on top of their issues, and they have to an extent. During pre-season testing, the car was far more stable than its predecessor, and Toto Wolff stated the bouncing was gone. But the car didn't look quick, with both drivers struggling over the 3 days, and it was with good reason. We saw Lewis Hamilton more time going sideways rather than going forward. During the race at Bahrain, both drivers suffered from lack of rear downforce and high tire degradation. Eventually, Lewis and George had to settle for P5 and P7. Not only did Lewis finish 51 seconds behind eventual race winner Max Verstappen, both Mercedes drivers were overtaken by both Aston Martin drivers, making the outing at Bahrain the worst day of racing for the Mercedes Works team. Not only were they the 4th fastest team, but they were also jumped by a midfield team, which finished 7th last year. This is definitely not the pace and the performance that Mercedes want from the W14 in the remaining races. To improve the overall performance of the W14, Lewis, George, and Wolff believe that changes to the sidepods are to be made. Toto mentioned about the team needing to make radical changes, and in terms of the sidepod upgrade, something that needs to be changed right away. The team had some doubts about whether they'll continue with the no-pod sidepod design, or ditch the entire thing and go with something brand new. Wolff said that the current design of the car is very unlikely to be competitive in the 2023 season, and this is something that Mike Elliott has spoken about as well. When talking about the bodywork upgrade and what we're expected to see in the following period, he added, "Toto already said that we've got a different bodywork coming. It won't be the same as other people's, and it won't be the same as we've got. It'll be different. It's part of the normal development. We've got a very different side pod coming. I say very different, a different side pod that's coming." I think Toto said that in the press, but it takes time to bring that. It takes time to make the bits. It takes time to change the bits that go underneath the bodywork to fit. So, we'll bring it as soon as we can. Obviously, the major upgrade package that Mercedes had planned was for Imola, but now that there is going to be an imminent design change, we cannot help but wonder if Mercedes will be bringing that design updates within the next 2 races, something that Lewis Hamilton will be very happy about. The next Grand Prix is at Saudi Arabia, with the Jeddah circuit to be favoring Mercedes more than Aston Martin or Red Bull. But that won't be enough for Mercedes to get race wins and podiums. Mercedes entered the Bahrain GP on the back foot, but they did bring a new medium downforce rear wing, and that is something Elliott is very happy to confirm is definitely serving the purpose it's supposed to serve. He said that this part wasn't brought to pre-season testing, but was implemented in the first race to acquire the needed straight-line speed. However, post-preseason testing, the team was left with a huge amount of questions to be answered. Some of the problems are, according to reports, already being worked back at the Brackley base. Now, what are we supposed to expect from the newest upgrade to the W14 within the next few races? Mercedes believe that visible changes will be brought to the grid and the W14's competitiveness will rise over the season's course. When Toto Wolff was asked about whether some of the planned upgrade packages have been applied to the W14 after the analysis at Bahrain, Wolff replied with a strong yes. On the Mercedes post-race debrief video, Andrew Shovlin suggested that upgrades are in the pipeline, but backed Toto Wolff's comments and said that the team has to focus on the long term, as these regulations stay still until 2026. People have tended to use the word concept when they mean the sidepod design, and Toto has said recently that we are looking at a revision that is going to come along in the next few races. Anyway, given the gap to the front of course, we're going to look at bigger departures and more radical changes. But those changes take time to turn into a faster solution in the wind tunnel. You can't do them overnight. There is quite a lot of development that you've got to do around any sort of big change in geometry. In that area, of course, we're looking at where we can improve the car. We're looking for potential to develop, and you'll see visible changes coming on the car over the next few races. Now, let's see how changing the sidepods would enable Mercedes to unlock a chunk of lap time. First, let's take a quick glance at how the underfloor generates downforce. The underfloor features two sculpted channels running down either side of the floor. The two channels in the new floors are designed to funnel and accelerate airflow, creating a low-pressure zone, taking advantage of the Venturi effect. In short, the low-pressure zone sucks the car towards the ground, creating downforce. Vortices along the floor edges make a seal between the floor and the ground, which means the car does not lose downforce. The FIA had the floor edges for 2023 raised by 15 mm to tackle the porpoising issue. So, the teams must have strong vortices along the floor edges to create a proper seal between the floor and the ground. And I believe this is where Mercedes are losing a lot of that precious downforce. Hamilton stressed the lack of downforce at the rear of the W14, and it might be that some of the air from the underfloor is escaping from middle to rear of the car, due to the vortices along the floor edges not strong enough to create a proper seal. Sidepods aid in increasing the strength of the vortices along the floor edge, and the lack of visible sidepods might be hurting Mercedes. This is my theory on how sidepods could improve the W14's performance. Feel free to comment down below on what you think about this theory. According to Mark Hughes, the nature of the problem within the W14 is definitely an aerodynamic problem. Mark mentioned that mechanically, the Mercedes car is the same as the Aston Martin's one, but the green Red Bull is able to utilize the airflow around and under the bodywork much better when compared to Mercedes, which is why they were able to school the team that they bought the engine from. But what do you guys think? Can a bodywork upgrade rescue Mercedes' season? Or should the team do something much more drastic to get competitive again? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section down below. And on your way down, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified of our future uploads to keep yourselves up to date about the 2023 Formula 1 season.